I heard you.
Alright, cool.
What, is this it?
Yeah, this is it.
Every intro so far is
Wow.
not
It's
an
always
intro.
super disorganized and super stupid because we don't have a little thing. If anyone wants us to make like beats for us, so we can have like a little jingle in the beginning and everything.
You should just use the Infinity Train one.
Copyrighted. Welcome everybody to episode 6 of Brown Conversation. I'm Fluid, aka Chris.
I'm Datu, Clark.
And we also have another guest this episode. Our guest this week is Kathleen Buban. Yeah! I'll introduce you because you said it. Whatever. Pronouns are she, hers. Kathleen, aka most people that know her, is like a first-generation Filipino-American mental health advocate and co-owner of a small business named Mahal Thrift. Also a current fashion student at CCSF. And she spends most of her time working out and running her small business and just watching cartoons. She also has a BA in sociology at SFSU. She left that out during scripting. I don't know why.
And a minor in race and resistance studies.
Oh, okay.
Let me add that to the script.
Alright. Yeah. How you feeling?
Feeling okay. I'm pretty nervous. Never recorded anything like this or like been a guest on anything in this aspect, so pretty excited to just like speak my wisdom or whatever you want to call it, my advice, my life story.
Period. Out of 10 so far. I know you said you're feeling nervous and everything, but out of 10, how you feeling?
10 would be like I'm great.
Yeah.
Like I'm
Having the best day ever.
best day ever.
Confidence of a
Like an 8.
white man, yeah.
Oh god. Okay, then like an 8 or 7.5. Yeah.
Sick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, my turn?
Yeah, your turn. I'm looking at you.
Out of 10? Maybe around a 7. I had to wake up early to take a roommate to the DMV because he had like a outstanding ticket or whatever. And then I came back to the house and in a daze fell back asleep. Not really. I just laid down in bed and then woke up, like got up at 11 and was like, what happened this morning?
Yeah.
I don't even, got up in like a cold sweat. Was like, I gotta take him to DMV right now before the line gets long. And I was like, okay, it's okay.
Like at like 8 in the morning or something?
Yeah, and straight up, I like cold to just open my eyes and was like, what fucking time is it? Okay,
It's like a fever.
good, let's go. Yeah, pretty much.
I hate that.
This morning was just a blur, but I had a bunch of corn and now I'm here, so.
Corn?
Yes.
Nice.
Chris?
Yeah. Out of 10, I'm feeling like 7 and everything. Been very productive for the past, I think just yesterday. Therapy go crazy, yo!
Yeah.
Been having a kind of like a rough like weekend or week, but doing really good right now. It's on the up and up, which is good. It sucks because the up and up is where I spend my time in work for the weekend for tomorrow, so it's fucking annoying. Yeah, clean my room and everything. I woke up late and didn't have time to do like some of the errands I wanted to do. I literally woke up just in a fever dream, just. I have to promote the podcast. Hold on.
Get up this morning.
That's honestly how I wake up. Usually
Every morning?
Yeah, it's
Like every morning.
it's kind of scary.
There's no peaceful way to wake up.
Oh, definitely
in this
no.
time.
It's always just chaos.
Yeah.
So yeah, cool. That's our check. So going on to community highlights. I totally forgot to have that ready. I guess. I guess the community highlight was just like, Instagram is actually censoring stuff about like Palestine.
Yes, I saw
today.
that.
They're taking out stories and shit. I saw like going through stories of just like my friends is like, this story is not available. I'm just like, what?
Wait, really?
Yeah. I was like, why is this
Not
not
because they
available?
blocked you or anything, but because of like censoring.
Yeah,
Instagram.
so just like
Dang.
literally like Instagram's like exposing just like or censoring Palestinian resistance and covering up just like ethnic cleansing.
Damn.
What's happening. So yeah, that's super fucked up, and that's why spaces like this are super important to kind of like talk about shit like that.
Yeah.
Especially when corporations and a platform is kind of censoring people to talk about shit like that. It's just like, what the hell?
Yeah.
What
Mhm.
kind of space am I to left with? I get why you can like censor like white supremacist KKK stuff, but like really,
Yeah.
like Palestine, like what did they do wrong? What are the stereotypes? Come on.
Yeah.
Mm. If we post a story on our Instagram and it's blocked, you know what we talked about.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Period. Or a video. Who knows? Yeah. Anybody else want to go there?
Well, sometimes it's just hard keeping up with the news because it's like one thing after another, and then you start to lose sight of like the things that are kind of really like immediately important to you, especially in like your own community.
Yeah.
So at least for the last like month, I think we mentioned it in the last episode because we talked about academia, and I want to pass this one off to Kay so that she can speak on it more. But CCSF, the community college, okay, I'm going to beat it again and let Kay talk more on why it's important to like not lay off all these teachers and shit, because it's affecting me too. I'm pursuing like an auto mechanics course right now, and even that's like they're not talking about it, but that's also losing funding. We're losing access. Mm-hmm.
Oh, really nice. Okay.
So, complete certification course for anybody that wants to become an auto mechanic in the industry. And like we lose shop time, shop space for people to work on, to learn like hands-on trades for things that are pretty much necessary work at this day and age. Everybody's got a car, somebody's got to fix it, right?
Yeah.
But now they don't want to pay people to fix it. It's more just like money funneling basically into corporations instead of back into education.
And who are the people like studying those courses too? Mostly
minorities!
Literally, yeah. So I recently attended a virtual press conference. I know it's a collective of organizations, but I mainly went because I follow We Are PH Studies. So follow them on Instagram. We Are PHST. They will give more information. I'd like to amplify that account specifically because this is the student-led campaign that aims to advocate and spread awareness of the current events of the Philippine Studies Department at City College of SF. And we are the only one. Philippine Studies at City College SF is like one of the only Philippine studies in the U.S., I believe, because even SF State has the only ethnic studies college. And even then, they're definitely tokenized in the way that they're like, oh, well, we can always say that we're the only like ethnic studies college in the United States, but then continually defund them at SF State. Mm-hmm. And then at CCSF, I'm doing fashion merchandising, like my certificate for it. And even my professor comes to class hella sad, and she's like, well, I'm sad about this, and y'all should know that I'm getting a pink slip, or I got a pink slip, meaning that she's like under interrogation, basically, that she can get fired or laid off. And then she's also the department head, and she's also a Black woman, and it's like she's the only full-time faculty as well in the fashion department, and same goes with the Philippine Studies department head as well. So that's something that's going on that I'd like to amplify for sure.
Yeah, I only know just like there's only one Philippine like studies like teacher that's like the faculty head and everything.
Yeah, she's like the only full-time.
It's This has also been going on for a long time because I've been at CCSF for about almost, I think, a little over 2 years now. Yeah. And then my first year there, I took an Intro to Filipino class. But it was split like a 1A and like 1B kind of deal. So like you take one half and then you could take the other half with the same teacher like the other semester or whatever. My teacher straight up, like, she was letting us know, so like, please sign up for the class because if we don't get enough kids, they're going to cut it. Yeah. And she just didn't get enough kids, and she was like, this is pretty much my last semester working here. Dr. Maria Joy Barrios, if you're listening to this, I appreciate everything you've done. We were using the textbook that she wrote that was the first, like intro to like Filipino like book that was cognizant of gender neutral terms. So that's why she wanted it to be a big deal.
Damn.
She studied over at Berkeley as well, taught Berkeley, I think, if I remember right. I'm blanking on her credentials, but she came over to CCSF because she wanted to teach at the community level. Yeah. Where I feel it's most important for things like that to be taught.
A fly aspen eye.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I basically stopped showing up to class. That's kind of my fault, but that was on my own thing.
Yeah, but it's also like, how are you supposed to feel encouraged to go to this class if it's not even funded or prioritized? Mm-hmm.
Right. She was upset and very forward about like, we're just losing this program altogether, and it's like upsetting. And towards the last half of that semester, you could tell she was not there. She was not with it. She was upset, and
as she should be.
I didn't show up for the last half of the semester. She still gave me a C.
Wow.
She still passed whoever was in that class just to
Yeah.
make sure they didn't lose out.
It's so upsetting.
But I mean, that's the kind of impact that stuff like this is having, not just right now, but has been happening for a long time.
Yeah. Yeah.
I feel like with like shit when in the institutional level where it's like oppressing you in a way where it's just kind of like taking away like your work, your livelihood and everything, you start to kind of like internally look at yourself and kind of just like shit's not going right with me and everything and it fucking like really sucks, and you can like really spiral into that, which is why it's gonna be the topic of this video is about like learning self-love. Sick segue. I'm so proud of that. Yeah.
But yes.
Before we get into actually learning like to love yourself and everything, I just wanted to give like trigger warnings to everybody listening to this podcast. We're gonna talk about past relationships, breakups, abusive relationships, general trauma and everything, and also just a little bit of self-harm. So if you are very easily triggered,
triggered by any of this, take a break.
Yeah, take a break whenever you do. Yeah. There's literally no like timeline to like listen to this and everything. You can even skip this episode if you want, but we really encourage you to push yourself, but only in your own capacity, so y'all can learn. So the reason why I invited UK. We forgot to say how do we know them. I know Kay through Pace because she's actually my ate and my mentor and everything, and you've taught me throughout all of my time knowing you and everything how to love myself more every now and then. You provide me resources with that, and it's just like ingrained in our conversation too, and you really affirm me with a lot of stuff. So I wanted to, you have a guest on here because just like you have so much knowledge and ways to kind of like teach. You okay?
Yeah.
I think I'm pushing the
I'm adjusting my bed.
You're all good. You've given me resources to kind of like have that, so just like we always talk about like the conversation start with yourself and everything, but what does that look like really? And
I think first of all, can I just say I am very grateful to be here, and like thank you for giving me this platform to speak my story. I feel like every time I talk about my story and like my mental health journey, it's always really easy to feel like you're alone in it. And always easy to be like, no one else feels this way. Like, that's fucking absurd. Like, why would anyone want to feel this way? Or, like, why does anyone, like, why would anyone even have those thoughts, you know? Of, like, hating yourself. So, I don't know. I hope just sharing this is a good way of just normalizing it for people and having them share out and even, like, reaching out to other people in their circle about how they're feeling. So, yeah, I think... God, start loving myself. I think I put down here a quote that I live by, and it's very Tumblr 2010. Okay, bear with me.
It's the best time.
Yes, best time. I think that also that era...
some people are still in that time.
Yes, I feel like that era of Tumblr and just like social media was very toxic because it definitely romanticized like the perks of being a wallflower and like self-harm and like being in mental hospitals and stuff, and like that was definitely an era of like white people who were like, oh, this is good. This
Depression
is
cool.
Yeah, like this is great.
So
like,
edgy.
Yeah, like let's do photography and like put a really sad quote over it and they'll get hella like reblogs or whatever. But this quote that I live by, I did get it from Tumblr, and I think I live by it even to this day because I've been at rock bottom a lot throughout my life, and I feel like a lot of people can relate. One thing that I learned from just like being on Tumblr a lot, this quote is, now that I know what it feels to be dead, I can start living again. And I think that that applies to my life and like my mental health journey because in a sense, mental illness kills you. And I've felt dead like a lot of my life, like even as a teenager and growing up like an Asian American. Like it was hard growing up in a predominantly white space and like learning to love myself in that space. So yeah, after feeling dead multiple times in my life, I can start living again and again and again. And I guess that's just a glimmer of hope that I always remind myself of.
Sick. I like that.
Yeah.
Every time I think of Tumblr, I have to take like multiple breaths and everything, but it's just like that's really refreshing to hear especially that coming from Tumblr. I'm like, oh, a shine of light.
Yeah.
So that's really good. I wanted to. What was it? Blanked out and everything, but I wanted to like talk about like. It's a little personal, but I wanted to ask both of y'all, just like, what was like the first instance y'all like recognized like, shit, I have depression. Shit, I have anxiety. Or like, that's anxiety? That's depression and everything? Yeah. I guess. For me, it was just like, during like high school and everything, and I just got really sad out of nowhere and started crying. And then I saw this like YouTube video, it was just like talking about depression. I was just like, do I have... I literally like went to the bathroom, looked at myself crying, like, I think I have depression.
How old were you?
Like 15, 16? So this was like...
the best age.
Oh, yeah.
Ever.
Ripe age of mental
age of mental illness. What about you?
Oh, man. When did I realize I was depressed?
When did I think it was normal? Like,
I was like...
What?
I was like, well... I feel like... When I, like, recognized it as depression, I think was, right before... Or, no, the first, like, winter break of my college, like, experience. So, freshman year, right? Mm. I go back to visit my high school marching band in because they came up to Reno or whatever, and I went to go support. It was just like, well, that's basically what got me through high school, so I just want to go be there for my friends. I was terrible toxic ex-relationship in that, but I'm not there to do anything with that at all whatsoever. Yeah. And I'm absolutely there only for my willingness to support my band, and just, you know, I have other friends there, okay? My life didn't revolve around... Okay, that was the problem. My life did revolve around that person.
Yeah.
Okay, so I was also in a mental space where I didn't understand how loving myself leads to loving other people more effectively. Yeah. So I was already kind of down in the dumps a little bit, but I go there to visit. We're staying in a motel or hotel that's rented out for the band. Got a room there. I go with one of my other friends to go get coffee for some of my friends. I didn't realize one of my friends was in the same room as my ex-partner at the time. They gave me warning ahead of time, so I was like, okay, fine, I won't go to the room, I won't deliver it, I'll just give you your drink or give it to somebody to pass it on, right? Yeah. So it's a Starbucks drink, so whoever ordered it has their name on the side of the fucking tag. Motherfucker. This was literally the worst night of my life. Close to one of the worst nights of my life. But definitely the night that I realized I have never been this anxious before. Okay. Yeah. I started to get really nervous because all of a sudden my friend texted me, hey, she saw your name on the side of the cup and now she's freaking out.
Okay, that's not your problem though.
Okay. Yeah. No, that's what I was just like... Yeah. Because she had like her own history of like depression and self-harm and a lot of stuff that was kind of imparted onto me during that relationship. Yeah. So I was already kind of trying to be as cognizant as I could of just kind of keep my space from that, right? Yeah. And her family absolutely villainized me for whatever reason, tried to blame me for all of her depressive problems and stuff. And I was like, not really my problem. Yeah. But after that, I heard just like, hey, her parents are here and they're mad and now they're looking for you. And I was like, excuse me?
So this motel wasn't like far or anything? It was just...
No, I'm in the same hotel.
Okay.
It's just a thing. But then they come, somebody comes running down the hallway and I just like, I can hear her mom coming down the hallway. I swear to God, somebody give me a bat. I'm going to beat this kid. And I'm like, I am just stood there like... Yeah.
Like frozen.
I have no idea what's going on. I've never felt this kind of like anxiety or like fear in my, this tightness in my chest. I was like, I don't know what's going on, but all I knew was just like, I'm not a bad person. I don't want you to look at me that way. I don't want you to see me. You're not listening to me, blah, 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 this and that. And it's like, and then, but, dang. And the crazy part to me was that I was blaming myself for all of this. Yeah. At the end of the day, I was like, no, that's not me. I didn't do that. I didn't do this. I'm trying to like deflect blame that's coming my way that I should have realized wasn't my problem to deal with. Yeah. Right? Yeah. But they're coming here, attacking me, attacking my character, and I just broke down. They never came inside or anything. I opened the door. He just looked at me in the face. It's like, you go anywhere near my daughter, it would have you fucking arrested, blah, blah, blah. That was a long time thing going on,
God.
right? I left the next morning. It was like, I'm not having any of this, but it was definitely one of those moments that I realized, like, I just didn't have, like, the willpower in me to stand up to an attack on my character. And even more, I let that sink in to a lot of my mentality. And then the following, like, semester is when, like, depression really set in. And I realized I didn't feel like I was good enough to do anything. And I basically flunked out of my sophomore year. Worked for a while and then came back to Margami. But that was...
And that's how you met me.
Yeah, I'm here with Chris. And here's my life story. But like I said, that's like definitely the moment I realized I was not in a good place anymore with my mental health.
Yeah. Dang, I feel like your story, like both of y'all's stories, definitely touch upon like so many intersecting like identities that we have, because not only are we like mentally ill, but we also are people of color who are mentally ill. So that just is a whole nother experience that you touch upon, where it's like, how do we deal with people in our lives that are also mentally ill, who are also person of color? You're a toxic ex.
No, she wasn't. She was a white girl. This was a white family.
Okay, damn.
Okay.
So if you wanted to exacerbate this even more, I was being incredibly mentally oppressed.
Yeah,
that was very fun.
And that in turn like internalizes to the point where you're like, I'm
You heard them threatening you, but you knew, like, you can't even call the cops to protect you and everything, because you know they would take their side and shit.
Right, and so here's the thing. He was also, like, the ex-fire chief of, like, our city.
Oh, damn.
Like that. So he had, like, a lot of leverage. Like, after our breakup, he, like, straight up threatened to, like, have me, like, sued or restrained or something like that. And I was like, for what? You sent your daughter off to fucking summer camp. I didn't.
Use that energy to send your daughter to resources that could help her instead. But also, that's not your problem at all.
Yeah, like I said, that was my problem, is I kept trying to come up with solutions for their daughter instead of them.
Not.
It really wasn't my problem to deal with, you know?
Dang.
Yeah, wow.
Mm-hmm.
That's a lot.
That's a lot.
And I'm sorry that you went through that.
Yeah. But thank you for sharing. I'm glad you're able to talk about that in a way where, I don't know, on a platform. Potential monetization. I'm so sorry. I saw the joke and I had to go for it.
I mean, I think that's why I really like this episode, and I feel like it's important, because I feel like without these kinds of experiences, I wouldn't be who I am right now or today. You know, and it's something I kind of carried with myself all the way through. I mean, we'll get into it later. Just everything that we're going to talk about today, it's part of not just my journey, but probably everybody here. You know?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So,
how about you?
Mentally ill Kathleen. I actually, the way that I found out that I was depressed was because I got caught stealing at 12 years old or 13 years old at a Claire's in Valley Fair.
Fucking Valley Fair. Fucking Valley Fair.
And Valley Fair. And it was terrifying, of course, because the security guards use all this pressure to be like, if you ever steal again, like, you're gonna get arrested. And of course I was a minor, so I didn't know what the hell they were even talking about, you know? And what's it called? So after that, my mom put me in therapy because she was like, I don't know what's wrong with you. Like, why do you keep stealing, doing these things, hanging out with people like this? And I went to Catholic school for elementary, like 2nd to 5th grade. So there was really a lot of, touch upon that later, but there's already a lot of internalized, like, oppression, shame that comes with being mentally ill and, like, being a woman of color in a space like that. So when she was like, I don't know what's wrong with you, I'm just going to put you in therapy. Just going to put you in therapy. So that's what happened, basically. And luckily, my insurance covered it. I know that I do have that privilege of being able to have therapy because I went in so young. I stayed in therapy throughout high school, to the point where, like, my therapist would come visit my school because I wouldn't have access to it. It actually started off as family therapy with my mom because she's a single mother and we would just always have problems. And, like, looking back at it now, those problems we had is a part of being a single mom who's also an immigrant, but also having a first-generation child. There's a lot that happened between us. But even looking back at it, yes, it was normal, but also it was very traumatizing. me stealing and like doing all these rebellious, quote unquote rebellious things, you could tell that like the fact that I am also brown contributed to the fact that like I was criminalized for even like acting out. And that also plays into that narrative of like little black, brown boys and girls or little children. They're very much like disciplined for being rowdy, quote unquote rowdy, or like speaking out or being loud because they're tone policed in elementary school. So I was very much one of those children who was pulled aside by my 5th grade Catholic school teacher, and they were like, you need to have a more positive attitude. But come to find out, I was just depressed like my whole life, you know? So being in therapy, I did get like a diagnosis of clinical depression. I think it has to do with literally like the makeup of my brain. I've never been on medication. I'm looking into it now. But even I think high school and college is when I discovered like my anxiety tendencies and started having like panic attacks and stuff. So yeah, that's where my journey started.
I like how you mentioned tone policing, because just like teacher, we talked about it in our last episode, like about academics and everything, but just like how like you should have a better mindset and everything.
Yeah.
Like, no, you should have a better mindset. If I'm acting up like this, you should like switch it up as a teacher. But it's Catholic school, they'll never fucking
and that's part of a bigger institutional problem of like you're gonna tell brown and black children and families to go to Catholic school so they can feel better, but in turn they just feel worse. And Catholic school kids are a different breed, I feel like especially if you're a POC. Like we grew up hella, I don't know, not to generalize, but
remember,
like,
God hates you.
Yep. No, exactly. Who said that? Like, whoa.
Hey, what did I do? Why are you
exist?
Why are you indoctrinating children with the idea that they have to live their lives to some better standard than instead of just letting them be children? No,
Thanks, Jesus.
We have to become children of God. Okay.
I was in so deep though. Like I was an altar girl.
Oh wow!
I was wearing uniforms.
Went there.
Obviously. Yeah, no, I went there. And what else? I think also just prayer in general is very important to Filipino families. So that's why I stuck with it so long, and that was my way of bonding with my grandma. So I was like, nothing's wrong with this, but then looking back at it now, I'm like, damn, that shit's crazy.
Like, there's something's wrong with this.
Something's wrong, but I don't know. My grandma's here.
I realized how like ingrained Catholicism and Christianity is into like Filipino families. Well, I knew that like learning with like PACE and like ethnic studies and everything, but I didn't know how far like it went into when I came back to the funeral of my Lola this past like February and everything. It was just like, oh wow, I realized the memories I had with my Lola and like connecting with them more on a like a very like good level was actually through prayer and through like church and everything. And looking back, that's so annoying. But damn, it really sucks. I understand like the good parts of like how that can bring, like that's a really good memory I have, but it I don't know, in a way it inhibits like people from having a good like connection outside of like church and everything, because like, okay, let's just leave in the church and then like just be chaotic outside. Just very
I feel like we could all go off about religion, but
that's another
Ooh.
That's big. Especially religion and morals and like good and bad and like how people shove that in our faces. But it's like, no, there's a bigger problem than this, I feel like.
Donations. I'll leave that there.
Oh my god. There's this
Pass
line,
the basket, come on.
No, there's this line in this song by, I think it's Dante Hitchcock, and he raps and he says, how are the pastors gonna preach that money is the root of all evil, but then ask for money after? Like, it doesn't make any fucking sense.
I see like so many like during like passing the money around and like during like church, my freaking like kleptomaniac ass kid just like, I wonder if damn it.
Well, if money's dirty and evil, the church is just taking it to clean it.
And if I'm brown and I'm dirty and evil, might as well just
do it myself.
I guess centering back in the conversation of like
fuck
like
church.
Fuck church and everything. That's like why
I feel like for me at least, that's a lot of my internalized depression.
I vibe with that a lot.
Yeah,
just, like,
vibe with that. vibe with our internalized oppression. Yes.
Yeah.
I get that.
I wanted to segue into kind of like understanding like your internalized oppression. Just like, how do you understand? You're able to understand like you're depressed and everything. You have anxiety, where that comes from and everything. Just like, okay, how do you actually start like loving yourself in that after having awareness? And that's just like, okay,
yeah,
what do I do with this information now?
It's just like, yeah, I know I feel like crap. Well, now what?
Yeah. Dang, I think for me, I really did learn a lot in PACE, to be honest, and like ethnic studies and learning about myself is so fucking empowering. Like, and that's why it's so heartbreaking that most of it can get defunded so quick. And it's like, here, you can learn about yourself, but oh, just kidding, we're gonna defund it. So that's why my heart breaks right now for the community, especially CCSF. But ethnic studies really, really helped me discover not the root of my problems, but like make more sense of my problems with the institutional and like bigger macro events that go on. Mm-hmm. So I think when I made sense of my depression, I made sense of it through like the institutions that steal our power from us and very much work to exhaust us and make sure that we don't win. So can you repeat the question?
Sorry, I was just like, this is nice, this is nice.
Yeah.
Oh shit, my turn. It's like when a teacher calls on you, I'm like, I wasn't ready. I was just listening.
So just English. Like, how do I make sense of...
Yeah, how do you make sense of the information that you processed around?
Yeah. I think also studying sociology definitely made me understand, like, a lot of it is internalized within myself. I think another concept that you kind of touched upon was shame and guilt in your mental illness, and I feel like that's a lot of people of color where there's an internalized sense of guilt and shame, because if you talk about it, if you show it, then you're seen as weak, angry, like it's your fault. And I think we all have, I feel like for me, I had that internalized sense of like, I'm the only one who has this power to fix it. But realizing and studying sociology and all these great works is just kind of like, a lot of it isn't your fault. Like, a lot of it isn't. And that's what the system really wants you to believe, that it is your fault. I saw this thing that said that capitalism literally steals your happiness away from you and then tries to sell it back to you.
Ooh. Amazon.
Yeah. And that's how I feel like
smile on every box for a reason.
Yeah. And not to say that, like, I mean, capitalism is kind of the root of a lot of evil, in my opinion, and a lot of unhappiness, especially for people of color, like brown people of color. But it's, how do I realize that? I think something that keeps me going is knowing that it is bigger than me. And a lot of people are feeling the same way as I am, you know?
I like that. I was talking to both of you actually about just like, fuck, it's just like, I was having a lot of struggles just like being sad, just like, cause the depressive wave never misses and everything. And I was just like, okay, this has happened before. I can do this and everything. I got it. But during that time, I just got really meta in my head. It's just like, fuck, no one's checking in on me and everything.
Yeah.
I'm really alone in this right now and everything. And my fucking family is being annoying as fuck right now.
Yeah.
And so I felt very, in my head, just like, fuck, I'm alone. I'm alone in this, and it felt very scary and shit. And I forget that just like, fuck, wait. People do care about me. I just gotta let them know. Like, hey, I'm not feeling like this. Yeah. But that was a defense mechanism in me. It's just like, hey, freaking... Sorry, I got distracted.
Put my sandal back on, I'm sorry.
Stop moving the fucking chair. I got really, like, in my head, just like, I'm alone in this. And I didn't reach out because it was a defense mechanism. It's just like, I didn't want to burden everybody with my own problems because it was so dark for me to handle. Just like, I can't imagine sharing that with other people and just like putting their mood down and everything.
Yeah.
But I realized just like, oh, if I have the right people, like, around me and everything that really do care about me, they'll affirm me and just like, hey, I'm here for you and everything. And that's why I'm actually so grateful for both of y'all. I was so annoying. I was so grateful for both of y'all
here smiling,
for like affirming me and shit. Because like Clark, you said, just like, you do that for me, just like that. The least I can do is do it for you, not because like out of gratitude, because I want to. It's just like, oh shit.
Yeah.
Period.
And
so
also that defense mechanism of not wanting to reach out is like normal. I feel like that's how a lot of people feel, and it shouldn't be something that that you look down upon, because all our lives are literally taught to shut up and like not talk about how we're feeling. Because if we're not contributing something productive or like intelligent that isn't our feelings, and like even that notion of like irrational versus rational, like that is bullshit to me, because emotions are rational. Like they're there for a reason, and it's your body telling you something for a reason. And it's great that you reached out to us, because that takes a lot of trust in yourself, I feel like. Yeah, honestly. I'm freaking sorry, I just lost track. But I like after like this whole week, I understand just how important like starting like the conversation with yourself about self-love, like it starts with yourself, but it also like continues on when you like get support from other people and everything. And that doesn't end with yourself, but it doesn't only have to start with yourself. It's just like you got to start that fucking ignition and everything, and then other stuff will kind of like help you drive along the way. Wow, car analogies, that's cool.
That's usually my thing. Hey.
What's up?
Oh my god. But I think another thing that connects to that is, I don't remember who said this. I'm pretty sure it's a Bell Hooks quote. I very much love Bell Hooks.
I fucking love Bell Hooks.
Everyone read All About Love, please, because it's very insightful. And I feel like it's one of those books you can read like over and over again and learn more and more about yourself. But this quote is like, the most radical way to show love to others is showing love to yourself. Because that's a way of like taking care of yourself, making sure you're okay and aligned and like grounded, and then reaching out to others, and not even reaching out to others, but like literally taking care of yourself. People will notice that, and then they'll be like, oh, like maybe I should do that, or like what works for me in terms of like self-care, you know? Yeah, I freaking
saw, or all of my friends have a good skin, and just like, wow, like I want to do that, and then I did, and that actually really helped me out with that shit. So also a good hell yeah period, sponsored by Cetaphil.
Please send me a lifetime supply.
Honestly, that would
send me a tub.
I would just sit in that tub. But I wanted to segue into, I'm popping off on the segues this episode, but just like segue into how like, because you taught me this, how your body actually contributes to your health, and like how your body reacts in ways where it's giving you signs like, hey, you should probably like talk about this or work on this and everything. So
for sure, I think last year during the pandemic was when I started being like, wow, I'm so fucking depressed. Like, I feel like everyone felt the same way, where it's like, damn, my mental illness is actually amplified being alone in a space that I don't even like. Why am I even here? Like, because we're always taught to like be out or like doing something or be productive. So last year when we slowed down, I felt myself slowing down, which was good. Also, my grandma passed away like right after the pandemic started, so that was hella depressing. I came out of a long-term relationship, so I was very, very depressed. I felt as though I didn't have a support system during that aspect or that time of my life. So I really went inward, and I was really like, well, what makes me feel good, and what is something that I can lean on so I don't have these bad thoughts or like resort to self-harm, you know? So I really resorted to working out again. I do Pilates. I work out with my housemate, which really helps. I work out with Eliza, which really helps. We're both on a like fitness journey right now. We do Pilates. We do like high intensity interval training. And yoga really helps me now. Yoga really helps me because it actually just taught me to trust myself and trust my body. and its capabilities and strengths, because I'm definitely trying to be more like flexible and like movement literally saved my life, I think. I think also these forms of movement and exercise brought me awareness to my body. And I've been meditating ever since my first year of college, where I took like a Psych 100 class and we had to like meditate in class, and I was like, what is this shit? What the hell?
I'm sitting here with my eyes closed and I understand what's going on.
Like,
I'm
what
on
is
my
going
phone
on?
right now.
Yeah.
I was in the big auditorium.
Yeah,
So I was on my phone during that time.
Meditating. Tweet?
I am meditating.
I was tweeting. You can literally go back to my Twitter. I probably tweeted that.
Oh my god. But yeah, like, I think that has really helped me. I feel as though that I'm still working on mastering that self-awareness, because meditation takes years of practice, not gonna lie. Like, even sitting in that stillness, I feel like we all have that internalized sense of like, let's go, 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 and like, let's move, because our value is measured by how much we move and how much we do. So meditation actually really helped me to like slow down and figure out like, what are the thoughts that are always reoccurring in my head, especially if something happened, or like, if I'm feeling stressed about something, like I can really hone in on that and like hone in on my body sensations, because meditation's all about like also getting out of your head and feeling your body. But stuff that I've noticed that were trauma responses to anxiety and depression and just like overall grief from last year was anxiety attacks. I started like shaking more. Like even before this podcast, I was like, I'm a little shaky. Like I'm gonna meditate and like do breathing exercises, shaking, panic attacks. What else? I know that like it's very common for Asian people to have like what is it called? Digestive problems with mental illness. I did not know that until like last year, because I know someone who like has PTSD, but they always had stomach problems. Like they would always throw up, they couldn't eat, they had to fast, they had to go to the doctors and stuff. I'm not gonna say their name, but yeah, I didn't know it was that common. I
feel that one.
Yeah.
I was like,
I did not know that.
Biggest surprise. Like, every time like I know I'm feeling like anxious, it
like
definitely starts here, like in like my gut. I'm like I can feel it there. Like I don't feel well. It's because I'm nervous. Yeah. And it like definitely starts like in my stomach. I don't get like gassy or anything, but it feels like my stomach is like nodding up almost. Yeah. And it's just like I really don't want it. Then it like climbs up into like your throat, and then like suddenly you can't breathe anymore, and then that's where all the anxiety starts setting in, because now you're getting self-conscious about that.
Yo, okay. Now that y'all are saying this, I'm just like, because my anxiety actually starts in like my chest and everything, and my lungs. I have asthma, and I am.
How cool is your inhaler? Mine's pink.
Actually,
I don't know what my inhaler is.
I don't. I think mine's in like San Jose and everything. I don't have an inhaler on me right now. But it's fine. Honestly. But like when I get anxiety attacks and everything, it starts in my chest and everything. Yeah. My like head like gets hot and everything, just like get really sweaty. I get in this like thing was just like, fuck, I have to run. It's like I'm like exercising and running, and it's just like I need to. My body response is just like track, just like, okay, let's run. Yeah. Run away from your problems.
I think that's like your literal like fight or flight response.
Oh yeah, definitely, yeah. Now that y'all talking, I'm just like, shit.
Yeah.
Wow, sure. That's crazy.
Yeah. Something that I talk about in therapy now is we're learning about the chakras, the different chakras in our bodies. Something that is very, at least something I need to work on is my throat chakra. So that also involves like breathing, asthma, like very much like that means your throat chakra is damaged.
Coconut water.
Yo, literally.
They're laughing right now because I sent them a TikTok. Or I texted them first, just like, "Hey, what coconut water or coconut like water do you like?" And the kid's just like, "I hate coconut water." I'm like, "All right, cool."
Like if anyone has like good coconut water recommendations, I'm open to it.
Throw it my way too. Honestly, I also don't like coconut water.
Like I tried it. I was just like,
but what is it? Like it's detoxifying.
It's like one of the foods that helps like clear up your chakra. Oh, okay. I don't know like what like thing. Yeah. It sucks for me because just like, okay, avoid salty foods. Just like, motherfucker, that's all I eat.
Yeah, no, exactly. And you have allergies, so it's like
That's my throat chakra.
No, and you also have allergies, so what else are you supposed to eat? Like,
I don't know, yo. It's like this world was like either God is white or I was never meant to.
Oh, yeah. But yeah, I think something that I've been very aware about is like my throat chakra and how I feel when I'm talking about my feelings. Like, I always feel as though I have a lump in my throat. And that's obviously a sign from my body saying, like, you have something to say. Say your shit, bitch. But, like, most of the times I don't because of that internalized, like, shame and, like, a lot of people coming at me, like, you're not allowed to say all these things. So,
as a panai?
Yeah, I'm definitely working on speaking my truth when I need to. And, like, that's something that I'm working on with the person that I'm talking to.
Shout out to...
No!
That one's gonna peak.
But yeah, I'm definitely... I know, I asked them permission, like, hey, can I talk about, like, our dynamic? Because I feel as though they're very good at listening to me, and, like, when I voice my concerns, it's very much received positively, whereas I feel like a lot of us were either in, like, toxic relationships or our family members were abusive to the point where they just shut us down if we felt a certain way, or like to the point where if we do feel a certain way, we feel as though like it's invalid because it's just been shut down our whole life. So I feel very like safe and nurtured and heard in this person, with this person. So yeah,
it's also a stigma to like not talk about like your relationships and everything or like your dynamic, because just like or like people don't just like want to be intrusive in their relationships, or just like some people are very self-conscious about it and shit. It's just like even talking like not talking about the problems about your relationships to like your friends like is just like a sign of just like, oh shit, like
and I feel like that's toxic too, because in my long-term relationship I felt like I couldn't talk about our problems, and I feel like you and I were the only ones who were like, yeah, these were our problems, but don't tell anyone, or like we can't talk about it with anyone else, you know. So I think like we didn't even know that was toxic, or like it wasn't healthy to talk about, you know. But yeah, just to go back to what I was talking about and like my body, I also stopped eating meat, which has helped me a lot because I had really bad eczema. I had really bad eczema last year.
My room right now. Here we go. Drop the hydrocortisone and the calamine lotion.
What is this for?
It's like for like the rashes and everything.
I see,
so like when you start getting itchy or like everything works well and everything. Sponsored,
please.
Up and up.
Honestly, there can be so many sponsors in this motherfucker.
No, for sure. But yeah, my eczema was really bad last year, and that was also a manifestation of the trauma I was feeling last year in 2020. Like after the death of my grandma and all the grief I was feeling, I was like, my eczema was on my face. Oh, sorry.
No, I just had an epiphany.
Yes. My eczema was on my face, like it was on my arms and legs and stuff, and that used to be normal for me, but then in college it went away. But then as soon as I stopped eating meat and actually eating like high fat, like avocados, chia seeds, and all that shit, I felt better, and I was doing like more face masks and stuff, and that was also just like me physically taking care of myself, and then my mind and body was like, wow, like you're actually building these rituals and habits to take care of yourself, like you love yourself, and we're gonna reward you with like better skin, like deadass. What were you gonna say? It looked important.
It's kind of like segue into like the next topic, or like trigger warning about like self-harm.
Yes.
Oh, in a way. Well, it's just like I remember. So I have like scars on my ankles and everything, and then I got it during like middle school. And freaking didn't heal properly because my eczema is just like, there's a scar attack and everything. So I kept scratching and everything, and it's still here like now, and I'm wearing socks. Don't look at it.
Show me your toes.
Wait a minute. Follow me on OnlyFans at
no.
I mean, okay. Anyways,
fluid feet.
I'm writing that down right now.
Look at that puddle. Wow.
Ew. No. Oh,
stop.
Elmo.
Oh, okay. Elmo. Okay.
Anyways.
But like going off of like that, whenever I was stressed out about just anything, like my like response is just fidgeting, just scratching and shit and everything. And then whenever you like, it's like satisfying an itch and everything. I was just like, oh shit, you're scratching it too much to the point where shit, it's opening up the wounds and everything, it's bleeding and everything. And I didn't notice that until like later, where like my friends were mentioning about that who also had eczema. It's just like, hey, that's eczema. I was like, that's eczema, really?
Yeah.
And I noticed when I was talking to my friends and everything, or when I was talking to like previous partners and everything, I always just, or talking about my experience, I always end up scratching.
Yeah.
And shit. I was like, oh shit, that was also a form of self harm. That wasn't as bad as like what I usually like did when I thought of self harm and everything.
Yeah. And
it's really sucked because like I remember when I was just like, whenever I'm the most stressed, looking back on my panic attacks, I think about my surroundings and look for like the sharpest sharpest thing in the room. I'm just like, okay, where? Thank you for listening about that. I was just like, wow. So like when you're talking about that, I'm just like, poof, epiphany.
No, well, thank you for sharing. I feel like when we think of self-harm, we always think of that like violence of like cutting yourself, hitting yourself. For me, that was what it was. Like I was cutting myself for a long time. And I've stopped, and it's to the point where like I don't even think about it anymore, which is great. But I do find myself when I'm really in stressful situations where I do think about it again, and it's really up to me and like reaching out for help in my support system where I do have those resources now, and I feel like I trust myself enough to know that that's not productive in my journey, in my healing journey. But also not to be tough on yourself when you do have those thoughts, because it's valid as fuck, you know? What was the other point I was going to make? But when you think of self-harm, you think of violence, not scratching your eczema. But scratching your eczema or like your wounds, open wounds, is definitely a form of self-harm. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Another thing I wanted to... So my experience with self-harm isn't really... I never really like cut myself. That wasn't really my thing. But at the time, having a partner during high school, that very openly, like, I knew she was cutting herself. Like, I had to take pen caps away from her. Yeah. Like, paper clips, anything that could even attempt to break skin. Yeah. I was well aware, right? But what I realized behind it, and it's also kind of, I think, touches back on the way your body manifests trauma. Yeah. And the way you respond to it, right? Right. Remedy versus the actual addressing of the problem. Like, you can put a Band-Aid on your cuts, but that's not really stopping you from cutting yourself. Yeah. You know what I mean? And something I'm also realizing I'm having an epiphany was that my form of self-harm through anxiety and stuff is pushing my body to the limits of exhaustion. Exercising myself to the point where I'm tired, but I tell myself it's that I'm improving myself, I'm getting better. Yeah. I did it a lot throughout my freshman year in college. I was going to the gym with all the baseball guys because they invited me, and they were just... that was kind of their thing already. They were already hyped to kind of just push their limits. Yeah. And it was playing a sport. Yeah, so, but they're playing a sport. Yeah. I was just there with them. So me doing athletic level workouts isn't necessarily conducive to what my body needs. I'm just pushing myself to the point that I hurt. Yeah. And it's not, and I'm telling myself that I'm working out to make myself feel better, but in reality, I'm trying to use that as like punishment for myself. But the consequence, or the what's the word? I guess consequence, I guess.
Like long-term consequence? Or...
Not, like the return from that is, in my head, something positive. Oh, I get stronger. Yeah. I get, my body is this, and this. But in reality, I'm not really taking care of my body. I'm not dieting the way I'm supposed to work out in that capacity. Yeah. I am straight up just trying to like bench press the heaviest amount of weight I can do at the time, just to feel something, basically. Right. But then I realized like that's the same mentality as like an anxious response with cutting yourself. Yeah. It's the same thing. You just want to feel something. It's like a distraction almost from whatever you're feeling, or it's like you said, like your fight or flight response, right? It's like if your response is to fight, and the present danger that your body feels is yourself, what do you think it's going to do?
It's going to want to fight itself.
Damn.
And in turn, like, damage what you built for yourself, basically. Yeah, thank you for sharing.
Thank you, yeah.
Yeah, I feel like working out. Working out too. Like that's something that I feel like a lot of people struggle with. Like, how am I supposed to work out when I fucking hate myself? You know, like
right, yeah.
And then it's always touted as like a way. It's like to help you with your mental. Like even when I was like went to like it wasn't really therapy. This was my time in the loony bin.
Okay.
But even then, they were like, you should try exercising. Raises your endorphin levels, stuff like this and that. And I was just like.
No.
Okay, but that doesn't tell me how to deal with my mental problems,
yeah.
okay? Sure, that helps me look at myself in the mirror and say, that looks great. I don't have problems with my body. I don't have any misgivings about the way I look at the moment, okay? It's all about how I just feel about myself as a person, okay? Yeah. This doesn't necessarily help me in that. Like, I'm not saying it doesn't for some people, depending on... Because, like, the problems are different. They range. So maybe working out does help for you, depending on what kind of trauma you're dealing with. But... It's not like a catch-all that you can just tell people, go exercise, it'll make you happier.
Yeah.
You know?
I realize now it's just, I used to say that to people, and I was just like, oh, that's so stupid. Why did I do that?
Yeah.
I made multiple TikToks doing that. Follow me on TikTok at MV_fluid. All this month. But I made TikToks just like, oh, you're sad, you should go exercise. I did. Now I'm
still sad
now
and I'm tired.
And sore. Oh, you should drink some water. I did. I refilled my hydro 2 times. Now I need to pee. So and I'm still sad and everything.
And that also goes in that conversation of like, when it comes to working out, like, yes, people do it because of that physical aspect, but like, are you really working on your mental?
Right, yeah.
While working out?
Or are you just running on a treadmill and in your head?
Like,
you know?
Exactly, literally running from your fucking problems, you know? And we're not trying to say that, like, it's their fault either. Mm-hmm. There's definitely ways that people are avoidant that some people don't even know that they're avoidant in that way, so...
Sorry.
But yeah, there's many different forms of self-harm. And then... The next question?
Yeah. So I'm just like...
Sorry, there's like no...
That's a sick segue. I think like to like open up that conversation to like end off for now is just like, it's always like, you're never like, okay, I'm out, I'm done, I'm never doing that forever. It's always a cycle in your head. It's just like, it's always a pattern. You always go back. But I think like when you do go back and everything, you remember ways on how you can get out, like, not faster, but in a pace where it's comfortable for you and your body.
Exactly. And instead of shocking and traumatizing.
Oh, yeah. Instead of just, like, I think what people have to realize, just, like, the path of learning to love yourself is always just a path of also, like, understanding your faults and, like, your traumas. Yeah. And also, like, your flaws.
Pull up. But another thing that I'd like to emphasize when you say about, like, healing and trauma is, like, healing isn't linear at all. Mm-hmm. Healing isn't linear. There we go. So that's better.
Yeah.
Actual. But healing isn't linear. Don't be too hard on yourself. What is that quote? I'll look it up, but continue. Hold on.
Now for more from our sponsors. Nobody.
Yet.
Nobody.
Yet. For money.
But it was kind of along the lines of like, if I don't know myself, like, who am I to even start healing? You know, like, it's kind of along the lines of, like, figuring out who I am, why I am the way I am, and then figuring out what works for me. Because, like you said, not everything works for everyone. And I think that also speaks to what I learned in sociology, where, like, equity is very important, because not everyone's story is the same.
What was it? It's in the notes. I don't know how to segue it. But also just like like how, like, going off of how you get out of the place and everything, and self-harm, it also can be like through like there's think about the TikTok, but just like there also can be through like an intergenerational trauma response. I'll say it again. It can be also an intergenerational trauma response.
Yes. Yes, of course. No,
Explain me. I didn't take sociology.
But like intergenerational trauma also works with like the eyes of oppression as well. How like our parents are also traumatized and oppressed as well, and it also can lead to kind of like them continuing the cycle within their kids. Yeah. I understand that, like, hey, my titas and my mom and like most of like my like family is also depressed, but they don't just like acknowledge it or like call it that.
Yeah.
It's probably something that they don't really talk about.
Yeah.
That's why it's so important for like us, like BIPOC communities, to actually talk about like what's bringing them down, because just like it's very stigmatized to never talk about it, because like there's always there's always a lot of pride and strength in that.
Yeah.
And never just like, hey, let's talk about our shit.
Yeah.
Like, talk as it is, but let's like be vulnerable and everything. But be vulnerable is obviously a sign of weakness.
Yeah.
That's very like ingrained
Yeah.
intergenerationally into our culture as well.
So, okay, I just want to say something on this.
Yes.
I definitely feel that. It's like, it's more from like my dad's side. It's definitely, yeah, you know, when they immigrated here, my oldest uncle went into the Navy basically to help support the family through when they got here, right? Full 20 years served. My dad served for about 6 years, but this also comes from just being in like the armed forces. That mentality of fortitude and self-sufficiency was that's kind of just like how my dad liked to raise me, right? It's just like, you just got to do things on your own, gotta keep your emotions out of it. Well, then you always try to turn it. It's just your mom's very emotional. She always tries to bring emotions into her conversations, this and that.
God, yeah.
So this is what's happening in front of me, right? As a child. So I guess no wonder this is kind of how that internal conflict is in my head.
For sure.
But like you said, how important it is for like people in the BIPOC community and those raising their children to be open about their mental state. My mom was very fortunate enough to be somewhat open with me about her mental state and how she feels.
Yeah.
And I think that helped and also didn't help me in a way, because it's like, well, now I feel stupid for feeling this way, because it's like, well, if my mom felt that way, then I shouldn't feel that way, because I don't want to repeat. I don't want her to see, me repeat any pain that she felt before.
Yeah.
When in reality, that was something I couldn't avoid anyways. It was something I had to learn to deal with.
Yeah.
But it definitely helped that transition into understanding myself and how to love myself, from understanding that it's just like, well, you know, if like I can see that my mom got through it, you know, or she still deals with to some degree today, but is at least open about how she feels.
Yeah.
Then it at least helps me like, one, find some sort of like solace in coming back to my family, understanding that at least I know my mom will be understanding if like I choose to be a little bit more open with her. I'm still a little closed off for personal reasons.
Right.
But part of that is also because like I still feel like I don't want to burden those problems onto her because of what she's dealing with. But I want to like, that's kind of how I tie everything back to the way I learned to start loving myself. And I think it's kind of a segue into like the next bit of talking we want to do. Like I said, like, which is pretty much like the entire point of this episode is after you start identifying your trauma, where it comes from, how you deal with it, the next step is, well, how do I start to turn that around, right?
Yeah. And break those cycles. And I think like in terms of intergenerational trauma, how I connect it to myself is like, yes, I honestly talked to my mom like the other day, and like I've been spending more time with her and I got close to her ever since the pandemic started. But she was like telling me about all the mental health issues in my family, and I was like, damn, bitch, like you didn't tell me this before. Like I didn't know that I was like this because of literal genes, like, you know? And especially on my dad's side, I don't really talk to that side, but apparently there's like history of like self-harm and like suicide and stuff, and I did not know that. Yeah. And so in terms of intergenerational trauma and intergenerational trauma responses, I connect that to when I feel my emotions. Something that is very empowering to me is that when I'm feeling the emotions that I'm feeling, and when my throat hurts, and when I want to cry, and I want to sob, those are all the crying. That's all the crying and the sobbing of generations of my family that could not cry and sob.
Damn.
Because they had to suppress themselves.
Wow.
Yeah. And that's something that's really empowering for me, because I deserve to take up space. And we all deserve to take up space because our families were taught that they couldn't, and that they weren't human, and that they couldn't feel their emotions. So, I think loving yourself, and knowing that we're at least opening the conversation up and like breaking the cycle at least like a little bit, like a tiny little bit, is very reassuring for me. And it's very empowering.
Yeah.
I feel like.
I think we should give ourselves more credit. Even that tiny little bit can go so far, like later on, and everything. I guess like while y'all talked about that, like when you were talking about your mom and everything, I was just like, oh shit. Oh, okay. Like when I'm like working on myself more, I'm noticing, like when I talk with my family and everything, especially when I go back home, I notice how my mom like behaves and how my dad behaves. I'm just like, wait a minute. What the fuck? Why are you doing that? What the heck?
No, exactly. And especially on a journey of self-love, when you start to love yourself, you notice how much other people hate themselves. And how much they project onto you.
And I'm like, hey.
Something ain't right here. Like,
and I'm glad you said it like that, okay? It was just like, goes on to the next question. It's just like, when you like hate yourself more and everything, or when you self-deprecate, you forget who does it hurt, really.
Right.
Yeah.
And I noticed just like,
sorry, sick segue.
who are you? You know me. No, I don't. But freaking going back to my mom and everything, how when I'm working on myself, this is literally like, never mind. I'm not gonna say it. I'm not comfortable saying it. Not this platform yet. Yes. But like when I'm like hanging out with my mom and everything, she's doing stuff like that. It's just like, wait a minute. I'm trying to work on that. No, I got that from you. I'm like, holy shit.
Yes,
holy shit.
So, right.
So I'm just like, okay, so
right.
like when you're doing that stuff to your kids and everything, they take that up. When you hurt your kids, they're gonna end up hurting themselves and end up doing the same thing to other people as well.
Or when like their parents are literally like saying comments and like projecting their anger and trauma onto you, like
I'm like, yo.
Like, as much as my mom loved me and tried to raise me a little bit more fearless, I definitely still picked up a lot of problems.
Yeah.
Right.
Like every time I look back on it, it's just like every time I go home and I see something and I'm like, that's where I got that from.
Yeah.
Oh, that's where I got that from.
Yeah.
And I think like the big note, like especially for Filipinos, like, there's a lot of like love for our family and everything. It's so easy to just like, you did this to me, and just like villainize your parents and everything.
For
and that's honestly like for some parents, it's like they're going too far to where it's like unforgivable, and I understand that because some parents are narcissistic as fuck. Yeah. Honestly,
wait, what'd you say?
Some parents are narcissistic as fuck. That was really hard for me to say.
No, it's
I need to get more coconut water.
Narcissistic. Oh, God.
But I understand, like, also, like, I was practicing with myself and everything, but to understand, like, when my parents are, like, being harmful to me, it's like, I'm mad at the things you're doing, not at you. Because I know your parents can flip it. It's just like, oh, you hate me and everything. I'm just like, no. Yeah. You were doing really bad to me, but I still love you, like, as a parent and everything. I still have that relationship with my parents. I'm still lucky to have that.
Yeah, same.
And so, when talking about, like, my scars and everything, I literally, like, when I, like, when I feel like, when, like, I end up, like, itching my scars and everything, I just, like, kind of, like, pause a little. And I just say to, like, the scars and myself, like, hey, I love you. And shit. So fucking cheesy, but it's actually really working out. Yeah. Like that talk with myself and everything. Yeah. I have a full length mirror in my room now. Thank you, Target.
Yes.
Until it falls off and breaks. Like
It's okay. We'll take another one. But
for legal reasons, that is a joke.
Yes. Legal reasons, that is a joke.
But that's really good that you have that relationship with your family. I think for me, I'm still working on like keeping my family accountable for the out-of-pocket shit they say and like do. Because I recently spent time with my mom. We went on a trip, and she just stays saying out-of-pocket shit. And like, I think something that I got from what you said, Chris, is that you're like, I'm mad at what you do and I know why you do it, but also I think we all need to allow ourselves that space to still be angry.
Right,
and sad, because my mom said some shit on our trip, like, I had a panic attack because she said that I was ruining the trip, and I was like, girl, I'll have a panic attack right here and now, and I did, and she is learning how to comfort me, which is good, because that's very healing of my, like, inner child and stuff, but the fact that she still said it is like, dude, I'm gonna call you out on that because that wasn't okay.
Right.
You know?
I think, what was it? That self-regulation of, like, your emotions and your body and everything you end up like, when you do that, like with like interactions with the people, they see like your like emotional maturity and everything, especially your like, loved ones are doing that, you're practicing that, especially with the like relationships. Yeah. So like keeping like friends accountable and everything, and like actually like speaking your piece was just like very like I don't know, it's very healing. Yeah, it's very very like loving and everything. That's why I like, I'm just looking at the script right now. I just lost my ways. But
this is the way.
This is the way.
Oh my god. Oh, god. Wait, I have this quote that relates to what you said.
This is the way.
Shut up. Hell is screenshots. Where the fuck did I put it? It has to do with like calling others out. And I think calling out others, I'm sorry, I'm trying to find the screenshot. Girl, what the hell? Oh, here. Call-outs are necessary. Call-outs are love. Call-outs begin a process of accountability. It informs the community, and they are survivor-centered. Opposition to call-outs is more times than not a desire to coddle harmful people and behaviors. So I think that really applies to, like, even our parents, people in our everyday lives, because, yeah. I mean, also, there's that other aspect of, like, if you are emotionally exhausted, it's also not your job to call people out, because it's, like, there's only so much you can do.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Yeah.
That's why it's always good to check in with, like, your capacity and everything. And, like, when you're telling people, just, like, ask them what their capacity level is, too. Because, like, you may be, like, telling them, like, the stuff, but not being, like, in the mental capacity to even, like, hear or listen. And, like, the gain is, or the intent is to learn.
Yeah.
It's just, like, sucks.
Yeah.
So.
But, yeah, going back to, like, self-regulation, I think I touched upon that earlier, where, I do still have panic attacks, but I think that I've done a better job of regulating them. I have panic attacks like once every like 2 or 3 months, and I now know what to do when I am panicking, because you kind of can't prevent it. It's definitely like a body response. What else? Self-regulation also involves just like, I don't know, like for me, it might not be the same for others, but like movement. And, like, actually making sure that the trauma in your body is moving around, because it's probably been stuck there for a while. Like, and that also brings up how I've also done breath work and meditation. Breath work is really good for moving trauma around in the body. I'm not the most accountable person to, like, inform, like, where it originates and everything, but I know for sure that it's helped me. Like, some workshops that I've taken from that Entrepreneur summits, like they've had guest speakers who do breath work, and it's been very healing. You usually end up crying after, because the breath work that you can do, like the exercises, kind of imitates that of like crying and like releasing breath from like your chest and your stomach. So yeah, y'all should look it up. Try breath work if you're comfortable with it, but it is very intense, I feel like. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I think kind of like the segue to that, you mentioned a little, but like I think I wanted to ask y'all, what has helped you along the way in kind of like your self-discovery, at least with your identity, or like your self-discovery to like loving yourself more? Yeah.
I'll start.
Okay.
As far as like what's helped me the most is really not holding it in. And because my biggest problem is I overthink. Big Virgo energy.
Oh my god.
So when you start to overthink your anxieties and your misgivings about yourself, I can just go on and on and on forever, right? But the second I start to vocalize it, the second I just start letting it out. I'm not even looking for a response or advice. I just want to get it out of my head.
Yeah.
You know, instead of keeping it bottled up in there. It's one of the most like relieving things like I can do is just let it out, and let it out with people I know that are going to actively listen, you know, and not like discount how I'm feeling or things like that. It's just they let me vent, You know, well, like I was saying with you, Chris, like, if I'm letting you vent, it's because you let me vent, okay? I don't care what you're dealing with, because you probably don't remember half the stuff I tell you.
I do. It's funny because, like, when you said that at the time, when I was, like, asking them, like, when I was, like, telling them just, like, hey, I've been feeling, like, lonely and everything, just want to tell you. It's just, like, what do you think? My
first response, hey, can I tell you something? What? I don't care.
I was just like, huh? And they're like, wait a minute. I don't care because... just, like, what you just said.
Because I know that letting that out is... one of the easiest and most accessible ways for you to start dealing with your trauma.
Yes.
And like we said before, loving yourself is the best way to show love to others. This is another way you can show your friends that you're improving by being very blunt and very honest about how you feel right now. And you will realize that, like, and this is something I tell myself, is that the people I surround myself with are just reflections of who I am.
Oh my god,
okay?
Yes! I want to talk about that. I want to talk about that shit.
Perfect. Because, like I said, if I'm surrounding myself with good people, and they're sticking by me, it helps me validate the feeling that I'm a good person.
Yeah.
You know? The more honest my friends are with me, the more I feel like I can be honest. More times than not, my car is used for, like, group therapy sessions than it is for actually driving people around. But in, like, a healing way, you know? We just get to sit and talk and just be honest and open. And at the end of it, we learn something about each other, and not in a destructive way, you know? And more often than not, when you start giving advice to other people, it's not because you know better. It's because you're learning yourself. Like, in the moment, almost always. Like, oh, this is how I would have dealt with that when I was dealing with that back then. You know, it's not so much, like, I'm not trying to make it about, like, myself, but more connecting to the trauma and realizing, like, within yourself where that trauma came from. You know, it's like, once you start to see it in, like, the friends around you, you start to realize... I know how to deal with... I'm starting to understand better myself how to deal with that. Just because now people are more open and it becomes more relieving. And then you start to realize, I'm not the only one that dealt with that. Oh, shit, you know? Yeah. And that helps, I think, the most with the loneliness aspect, right? When you feel like, oh, I'm the only one that feels this way. I'm the only one that feels like shit, blah, 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 this and that. I can't let other people know because I don't want them to feel like shit. They feel like shit, too. They're just not telling you either. Like shit, you know? But, like I said, if you start to be honest with yourself out loud, that's definitely, at least for me, that was my first step. Was just out loud telling myself, look in a mirror and be like, you are sad. But
fuck you.
You know, it became like a surreal experience almost, just looking at myself. Start doing that. Yeah, just looking at yourself and just
that's hard.
Talking to yourself about what you're feeling.
You learned that through internship.
Yes. So look,
there are good resources from PACE, but we all know that Philams can be very toxic in a capitalistic way. We all know that. But yes, there are some few resources that we've taken, and of course that are empowering, and we're gonna take it and run with it. Because what else are we to do? Like, but yes, do you want to speak about your self-love? I'll go off.
Yes. I think, like, what has helped me is literally just being true to who I am and myself, and being open to every aspect about myself, and loving all part of it and everything. I used to run away from, like, all of my problems and everything beforehand, and it was not until, like, this year I had to face the truth and everything about, like, what I did, how I interacted with people and everything. And I got space for myself more, where I'm like, okay, who the fuck am I? What the fuck am I doing and everything? What was this? And realizing that and expressing that without, like, any fear of just, like, ridicule or, like, holding back and everything, or, like, policing, I feel more free than ever and everything. I started, like, I went back to school and everything. That was cool. And just, like, learning in that capacity to where I'm working on myself has been honestly really great. The assignments are stupid. Yes. But, like, learning in itself was just, like, gave me a lot of healing time, and also expressing myself. I learned how to edit more. I'm still learning and everything. And I pressure myself a lot, but like, you suck first before you get good.
Yeah.
And like, this whole podcast we literally planned this last year, and now it's out now, like a year later.
I mean, that was a year of self-doubt and getting lazy.
Well, congrats to y'all.
But, you know, now we're here.
Yeah, so like, for me to express myself in so many different platforms, I think I made TikTok. What the fuck?
You do the talks.
I do the talk. But like, being able to express myself and find ways to express myself more in artistic ways about my true self is what helped me a lot. And being honest with myself, my interactions and everything will like really like had better outcomes for me, because just like, oh, why was I receiving so much ridicule or like pressure from people? I'm like, oh, I'm probably doing that to those people too. Let's look inward now.
Yeah.
And now here we are. I'm fucking glowing. 2021 is my year.
You are glowing.
Literally, like,
you've grown a lot.
Thanks.
Since I've known you, so proud of y'all.
Yeah.
Yo, that's really good. It looks Squidward.
Hey, don't get me started on impressions. I will go off.
Okay.
Yeah, you gotta be careful.
So why don't you have a jingle that's like an impression or
do
something?
Dr. Nutriment right now.
Platypus? I can't do it right now. Got me nervous. I'm sorry. I'm difficult under pressure. I can't perform.
Doofenshmirtz so much. But
I got a video clip to show you later.
I want to see it. But yeah, I think I can relate to both of you in the way that self-love is fucking hard. It's so difficult. I feel like what I got from your story was kind of just like I said, like moving the trauma around in your body, whether that be like those thoughts that you have or like the trauma that you've collected through your body. Everyone read, I don't know if your readers read like that, but I also read The Body Keeps the Score by, I forgot the name. It's a very
oh, damn.
Yeah, I didn't put the author because I can't say it. Like, I really can't. But Body Keeps the Score definitely hones in on how the body literally stores trauma. How would you say that?
Bessel van der...
That's the publisher.
Oh, that's the publisher.
No, I think that's the person's name too. But like, I don't know. Those are the different books that they wrote. But anyways.
Oh, yeah.
Definitely hones in on like how the body literally keeps score of your trauma, no matter what. No matter it be like words or like the harsh things you say to yourself or the harsh things that you do to yourself. Like, I think that made me realize like, oh, like movement is something that makes me feel really good and art makes me feel really good. So I'm going to express myself through that. I also grew up very artistic. So I'm very like hands-on with like painting and like I love fucking getting dirty and shit when it comes to like expressing myself. But I do overthink as well. And overthinking for me, I just journal a lot. I try to journal as much as I can to literally get those thoughts out. Another thing that helped me was like affirmations. I know that some people think it's like pretty cheesy and stuff, but I think that affirmations have helped me because I listened to this YouTube audio by Amy Lee. It's called Self-Love.
We love Amy Lee.
Amy Lee is great for mental health and just like self-discovery in general, because when you're talking about how everyone in your life is a reflection of yourself, like that was the time last year when I heard that and I was like, that was my epiphany where I was like, damn, well maybe the people I surround myself with aren't the people I want to. And that's very much like coming out of like a Filipino-American organization where it's normalized to love everyone and be everyone's friend and like...
You're like, I don't have to be.
No, exactly. Like, I don't have to be liked by boundaries. Everyone. You know, like boundaries, definitely setting boundaries for myself with those friendships. And the pandemic made that easier too because...
Oh, I could just stay inside away from
Yeah, exactly. Like,
all right,
I don't have to see
Turning
you, that's
off
fine.
the camera.
Yeah. So... Definitely watching her videos have helped me because one of them is like how to be self-aware, and that includes like looking at the people in your life, evaluating like what problems you can identify in them, because that usually means that you have those same problems because it's a reflection of literally like, for example, I tried to explain this to my mom because she was like, what do you mean? Like people are a reflection of like who you are. And say, for example, like I'm annoyed at someone because, I don't know, they're like loud and I view them as one of my loud friends, and that pisses me off. And I think that might have to do with me projecting that insecurity that I'm too loud, or like I am too much, or I take up too much space. But in contrast to that, like something that I notice about my friends, Chris. Something that I notice about Chris is that I really love...
Immediately.
All right, we're editing this. Edit clap. All right, that's for me later, okay?
Something that I notice about Chris is that they're very good at like asking about capacity and like genuinely caring and like checking in on others, and that's something I admire, and that's something I want to take up because that's a quality that I want to adopt. And that's the same about, I don't know, it just ties back to reflection. I can see the good and bad in other people because I see the good and bad in myself.
There's this meme where it's just like SpongeBob walking to the room and the screen is gray, but where SpongeBob is, it's full of color, and the meme's just like me entering your life full of sunshine. That's me. That's how I feel right now.
Anyways. But yeah, I think my journey of self-love definitely started with becoming more self-aware. Being self-aware is so fucking painful though, because I don't want to be aware. But I
always called it a blessing and a curse.
Yeah, like, for sure.
But I think I retweeted it to you. I sent you a video of like this like therapy gamer, and somebody like sent out a tweet, and it was just like, man, like every mental health professional I've ever talked to said, I'm really self-aware. And I was like, I think that's part of the problem, sir.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Mm-hmm. I was talking in therapy too about how sometimes our self-awareness and anxiety can actually just lead to our destruction because we overthink.
Right, yeah. It's that self-sabotaging aspect about being too self-aware about like yourself, and like now you be too meta in your head. It's just like, okay, people aren't reaching out to me. Okay, people don't like really appreciate me or love me. Yeah. That's how I felt like usually and everything. I get too meta in my head.
What does that even mean? Can you explain that?
Like, how do you explain meta?
So, like, so let me try to. So, like for me, when I say like I get too self-aware, I even told my like emergency therapist this. Mm-hmm. I was like, I am way too self-aware of the problems I have within my head. Yeah. And they were just like, well, what are you going to do about it?
Okay.
That's why I'm here, right? Yeah. Okay, but that was, I think I realized what the problem was. It was that once I get so self-aware about those problems, I start to validate them more as a problem that should just exist. Mm-hmm. I'm like, oh, I'm depressed. It was like, I could clearly just do this, or this about it, right? But then I don't do it. And then that makes me more depressed.
And you're like, but that's like how I identify, like, I'm depressed.
Yeah, it's just like, now I just feel like a piece of crap because I didn't address my depression, and I'm depressed about being depressed. Mm-hmm. And then that cycles over and over and over again. And that's what I think we're talking about, like when it becomes like meta. It's not based in reality anymore. It's based on like a repetition and a trend. Meta kind of comes from like gaming, where it's
from an assumption that like this will work or something. Mm-hmm.
So when like in mass something starts to clearly like be the most effective route, that becomes the meta. That becomes the way to do things. Like in like a first-person shooter game, like a different gun is more is stronger than the other one, or a different tactic or style of play, that becomes the meta. And that's kind of what happens in your head when you start to overthink. You start to default into this this like cycle of like depression. This is what your mind thinks becomes the most effective way to deal with it, when in reality it's just cycling over and over and over again.
Dang.
Yeah.
Okay. I see that.
Gaming philosophy, great thing to look into. Just saying. It's a real thing, and it's fantastic.
Honestly, playing like games while high is like the best experience ever. As when you can function. For me, like I'm just like playing like fucking Minecraft. I'm like, all right, I'm tactical with every fucking jump or some shit. Or like when we're playing COD, I'm just like, all right, go angle right now. Just like, what the heck?
Oh my God.
I just get really in my head with like that shit.
Yeah.
Where I think about like find pathways and everything, and this also kind of like, I don't know, for people who game a lot, or try to think about new strategies to like counter the meta, or like counter like whatever thing. You get too like into your strategy where you just like forget how to function in the game. That also works in like, you get too invested in like your insecurities and like your like way of thinking and trying to analyze that thing, where you're just like, dude, breathe.
Yeah. That kind of reminds me of just like another thing that I've been trying to work on as well, and I know that it takes years to work on, but literally just ego work.
Mm-hmm.
Literally, like, looking at your ego and the voices. Okay, something that I also learned is intuition versus ego, and that can also come from, like, spirituality aspects, but intuition is that quiet voice that you can sit with and can be still with, and you know that is right and feels in your gut, but your ego is the one who's, like, when your mom is yelling at you, the ego is the one who's like, you need to tell her off right now. Like, what is your problem? Like, what the fuck is wrong with you? You know? And, like, you need to stand up for yourself, blah, blah, blah. But, like, in some people, like, for at least me, my intuition is like, you don't owe her that energy to, like, fight back. And that goes with, like, anything in life, I feel like.
I think I like how you did that analogy where it's just like the people, the voice you can sit with, because I notice now, like, whenever shit, like, happens now, I notice my intuitive voice is speaking more with me than my ego. Like, when I go to you with, like, my, like, stressful stuff, I'm just like, okay, that is, like, my intuition talking and everything. And also, like, some people don't have that, like, intuitive, strong voice and everything, and that's why it's important to kind of reach out to friends, like, hey,
yeah, for sure.
This?
Especially if you hear it back to yourself, and you're like, oh, like, I was thinking that anyways, I just didn't know that it was okay. You know?
So, yeah. I also kind of wanted to another segue into, like, a next topic we'll talk about, like, a little bit, was just about therapy, because, like, we all, like, went to therapy, and I still go, and, like, hey, you say you're still currently going, but it's really important to go to therapy, because, like, sometimes you just need someone to listen to and give you actual feedback and give you tools for that. And I didn't realize how therapy can just go fucking crazy in, like, your self-development, but it really does. But I want to also freaking talk about the accessibility of therapy. Yeah. Because sometimes for some communities, it's not that, like, well, you still need, like, even though they don't take insurance, they still need, like, your information and your insurance and everything. Especially for people who don't have access to, like, citizenship documents and everything. Yeah. It's super important to, like, they don't have access to that therapy and everything. So when you're telling people, it's just like,
just go to therapy.
Just go to therapy. What the heck?
It's like,
just,
no.
like, it's more complicated than that.
It's very much more complicated.
Especially pricing, too.
Yeah.
So expensive.
I'd like to speak on, like, my SF State experience really briefly, just because SF State, every time I talk to anyone about the SF State experience with therapy, it's just fucking horrible.
It's so fucking...
It's so bad.
That was my first instance of therapy and everything.
Literally.
And
literally.
Like,
and it's someone's first experience, and you're like, never mind, I don't want to go anymore.
I don't want to do that. I was just like, dude.
Yeah,
like...
Okay. I'll go off on my situation. But basically, what had happened, I went through something really traumatic, being a leader in PACE. And, of course, I had to seek therapy for that. But, of course, I couldn't really afford anything because I'm out here self-sustaining myself, like, paying my own bills. And my insurance wasn't based here yet. It was based in Santa Clara. And, I don't know. I feel like if you're depressed and traumatized, your first instinct isn't going to be like, how do I get, like, insurance out here? Because that process in and of itself is very complicated. And I've done it, but, like, it's so complicated and not very accessible. So when I first went to therapy, I was like, okay, this is cool. Someone's finally listening to me. Great. Finally have an unbiased perspective. But for SF State back then, you only had a certain amount of sessions. And I know that now it's, like, even worse because you have less sessions. Like, you have 3 or 4 sessions, and then you have to find your own therapy outside of SFCs. Right. Because there's not enough therapists available, first of all, at the school, at the university, which is already, like, a problem in itself because they can fund their police departments, but not therapy. And,
no, you can say it louder.
Oh, yeah, they can fund their police departments and SFPD and everything, but not the psych services that are needed for burnout and especially, like, noticing, like, the suicide rates in college students. Like,
right.
How does that correlate? Like, how...
When the police department is bigger than the student health department.
Yeah.
I think there might be a little bit of an issue, but I mean, whatever.
Just like current funding in the current government right now.
No, for sure. But that does reflect on, like, the U.S. government as well, because it's also a problem in universities. So
our societal institutions are ingrained in oppression. Exactly. Wow.
We live in a society. But yeah, I think...
Shit.
Ooh, damn, that go brr.
Can that be the clip? Like, on the Instagram?
You want that to be a clip?
We live in a society.
Hell yeah.
Or it could just be me going...
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Alright. That's for me later.
Okay, and then, Yeah, so I did that, but then I finished my sessions, and then you have to go to, like, a case manager who helps you, like, find other therapy. But then the therapy resources they give you are either sliding scale or, like, not very good options. Like, they're white people or, like, grad students who are white, and they just listen to your problems, but, like, it's just, like, active listening, which I felt like I didn't need. So after going to therapy there, I went to, like, a white therapist in the city that I was seeing until after I graduated, and just recently in February I switched over to an Asian American therapist, and she's like around my age, and like I love her so much. It's teletherapy, so that means it's like online.
Yeah.
But honestly, therapy should have been online this whole time, but it isn't, not that accessible if you don't have internet. But I really like my therapist now. She does really good work with me, and she gives me a lot of resources like yoga classes, meditation practices, like in some like group therapy sessions. We also have group therapy that's free, and we do like art in it, and it's great. So it really takes years to find that therapist that you really like. Yeah. It's like dating.
Honestly. I'm sorry. Okay. Yeah, freaking with therapy and everything, being non-binary, it was so hard to find someone who understood my identity like beforehand and understood like, oh, how that shit worked. Because most of my time when getting therapy, it would just be me first sessions explaining who the fuck I am.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's so draining for me to explain that to you when you don't like. No, it's a good, like, I'm not saying there's like bad white therapists out, like there's not good white therapists out there. There are and everything, and that's important. But for people to understand that like that level of identity, you need to like sometimes you just need a POC or someone that relates to your identity to just know and understand how your life is and shit. Yeah. Because just like if you have to explain how your life works and everything to a therapist, then they probably aren't the therapist for you and everything.
Exactly. And every time, and like re-traumatizing yourself with those experiences that you're like, this is why I needed therapy, you know, like
just like
it's a lot.
It's crazy and shit, and that's why like having a POC therapist is so fucking so great. But again, the accessibility is because some POC therapists, there was an ad on Instagram about like Philippine therapists and everything, but I look at the rates and those rates are really expensive, or their like booking is full and everything, and it's still just like just the overall health issue and everything, just because just how the healthcare industry is an industry.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
And so that's just
selling our unhappiness right
really back to us. And even like diagnosing, like getting a diagnosis, an actual diagnosis is very expensive. Just like I have to pay hundreds of dollars to understand what the fuck the problem is. Yeah. And I can't just, hey, what is this? Yeah. Hey dog, what the fuck is this? Yeah. Oh. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, my turn. So here's really like my experience with therapy. I'm currently not in therapy. I'm looking to go back into it, but here's kind of my story with it. Like I said, I want to touch back on this before, back like when I was dealing with like when I realized I had depression and then flunking out of my sophomore year. I ended up getting admitted for a 5150. So that's the involuntary psychiatric hold in California, right? For about 72 hours. And my first like real exposure to like a therapist was like in that group therapy setting, right? Talking, trying to get everybody to be more self-engaged. But in my head from like day one, and I don't know where this came from, but I always disagreed with therapy as a commodity, right? The fact that I had to pay for that space, felt ridiculous to me. Like I was lucky enough to be insured, and it's a involuntary psychiatric hold, so it's not a lot charged on me to begin with. But the psychiatric services I was offered afterwards too. I had access to a therapist through my insurance and stuff like that, and I went. It really wasn't what I was looking for at all, and it was just a guy I was trying to explain. He was like Armenian descent, something like that, but like I said, just doesn't look like me. I didn't feel like they were really invested in listening to what I wanted to talk about. It's just like, I've got these problems with school, with family, blah blah blah, this and that. Have you tried different study habits? And I was
Girl, what the hell?
no, this isn't what I was looking for.
No.
You know? And like I said, and it still felt like that disingenuous feeling. It's like that kind of further, like affirmed in my head that feeling that like, I feel like they're not there to listen to me. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I feel like they're just there because I'm their paycheck. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It's just like, oh, if they can get around, turning around like surface level problems. I'm not saying every therapist is like that. And this was my problem where I didn't seek out a better therapist.
Yeah.
This is why I'm thinking about going back now.
Yeah.
But the other thing, and I heard this I think I was listening to a podcast with my partner. They're talking about their experience with therapy, and it was a little bit better. And how what you might consider therapeutic isn't necessarily going to be therapy. But not to say that therapy isn't still an important aspect to get you to that point. So she went to her therapist, right? And she's like, I got all these problems, this and that, but every time I talk about it, I break down. And she's just like, I don't understand. What was it? Sorry, I'm rambling. I'm getting lost in my words.
Okay.
The therapist, after like the first session, she was the girl on the podcast was explaining. She's like, my first session, great. Got to explain everything, get everything off my chest, cried, like really felt like I connected with my therapist.
Yeah.
But then every session after that, it felt like she was just distant, wasn't really helping me with what I was talking about. And then I straight up just asked her, like, what's going on? I feel like you haven't helped me at all. And it's just like, do you feel like repeating your trauma over and over again is actually helping you?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
And it's just like, well, what makes you happy? What makes you feel like you're actually taking care of things? Well, when I actually start investing in like my talent, my art, when I start doing something like this and that, it's just like, wouldn't you consider that therapeutic? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, then I don't know why you're coming here for relief. And it was just like, oh, but that's what I mean. Sometimes therapy needs to be that stepping point for you to understand what's actually therapeutic for yourself.
Yeah, for sure.
Because like I said, for me, that start for self-love is learning how to speak it out loud, right? Mm-hmm. And therapy is one of those guaranteed spaces where you can speak out loud with a professional who can, sure, they can tell you the science behind everything, this and that, but they don't know who you are at the end of the day.
Yeah, for
you know, only you know how you're going to respond and what you're going to do after you leave that office.
Exactly.
And your therapist is going to ask you the next day, your next session, what did you do? Yeah. What did you do between then and now? Yeah. It's not about what happened in therapy. It's what happens in between therapy. Yeah. You know? So that's why I want to go back, because I want to take another shot at, you know, self-reflection and seeing where I need to go after I bounce it off like a professional opinion. Yeah. You know what I mean? I'm not taking that as like gospel and that's where I need to let everything out, but I take that as like the stepping point for me to start understanding where I need to start taking care of myself. Yeah. That's good. Yeah. So that's my experience with therapy, and I'm hoping...
I'm cheering up right now. All my homies deserve therapy. Relevant therapy.
But not therapy that feels literally like a... Because how you were describing it earlier was just like a monetary exchange.
Yeah, right. That's what I mean. That's where this, like, the discussion about, like, one, accessibility is a problem, right? For sure. That's where I feel like the biggest problem is, like, with the whole health industry. I don't know why taking care of ourselves has to cost something. Yeah. Mm-hmm. You know, more often than not cost more than the health problems we're dealing with. Mm-hmm. And just give us more. But I think nowadays the conversation's been opening up more and more services start to become more available for free for people who need not necessarily like intense psychiatric help, but just that space, you know? Like for those who don't have internet and can't access things that are more along the lines of like BetterHelp or like online counseling, there are phone numbers now that just exist that you can call that are just self-help lines. It's not like a suicide hotline, stuff like that, but it's straight up just somebody 24/7 will be on the phone somewhere to listen to you. And sometimes that is a good stepping stone for you to get to where you want to go. Yeah. Can we put that number in the description or whatever? Yeah, I'll look for those because I know a couple exist. Yeah. And that just recently came up too. Yeah. But like, why did it take so long? But yes. Right? Yeah. It's there and that's a good resource. And I feel like another good resource is just like literally talking with the homies. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And like making sure that we're keeping each other accountable, but also like expressing
how it's related to our trauma. Like you said, expressing it and letting it out, I feel like is so much better than keeping it in. Whether that be through like movement, art, like literally talking, screaming, playing games, like do what you need to do. Like as long as you're not hurting others, I feel like.
Mm-hmm.
But
hobbies go a long way.
Yeah.
Like, constructive hobbies.
Yes.
There are some very destructive hobbies you can get into that won't help you.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
Shopping is not a hobby.
Yep.
I'm talking to you, whoever's got a problem with retail therapy.
Roxy.
No! I'm talking to my mom. Leave me alone.
I am talking to Roxy.
Literally, I feel like that that shopping coping mechanism has been passed down to me from like
Oh
my
yeah,
mom.
me too.
Yeah, like literally, I feel like it's a survival thing when it comes to being like an immigrant.
I buy
Oh, yeah,
myself
definitely.
things so I feel better. Then
Yeah.
I'm out of money and get depressed. But then I'm like, well, if I buy something, I won't be depressed.
Yeah. No.
And now I'm depressed about my money.
Yep.
Time to gamble.
Here I go stealing again.
Oh my god. Well, thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, and this is why this podcast exists, to give a space for BIPOC. So far, it's just Filipino people, honestly. But
Thank you for joining our group therapy session.
Yeah.
yeah, I guess. Thank you, Kay, for this episode and everything. I guess before we end it off to like shoutouts and everything, anybody that y'all want just general advice to end off the episode and shit, or anything you want to say that we didn't go over so far, you don't just want to say right now?
Shit. Hold up.
I feel like we covered a lot.
Yeah, I feel
Yeah.
like we covered a lot.
Most of my inspirational stuff comes from my trauma, so
Same.
you're gonna bleed me dry out of quotes here.
I think
Kill her, no.
I think that what I talked about earlier, what the hell did I even say? Healing isn't linear. Don't be too hard on yourself. Your feelings are valid no matter what you think. Your feelings are your body telling you something, whether it be to protect yourself, run away, stay and stand your ground. I think people are really quick to discredit their own feelings because of that internalized shame.
Mhm.
But your feelings are valid, and please find your support system, whether that be therapy or a group of people. But yeah.
Oh, I can go next if you don't. Okay, fine. I learned this in therapy. But understand your relationship dynamics with your friends and your loved ones, because understanding that, you'll understand how healthy or how toxic your relationship dynamics are. And like different healthy dynamics will not pull out the same behavior you've had in your toxic dynamics.
Yeah.
You may be ashamed of like your actions in that toxic relationship and like own up to your toxic tendencies, but you also have to realize that that's also a product of your relationship dynamics.
Yeah, for sure.
So understanding that will help you understand how you behave and interact with people, and also interact with yourself. What is the healthy dynamic or relationship dynamic that you have with yourself?
Yeah.
So,
And also that brings up like setting boundaries with the people
oh,
that
hell yeah.
you know
dude.
that are toxic but can't really get out of your life because they're like your family or like you live with them or something.
Mhm.
Like definitely setting boundaries for yourself is something I'm still struggling with, but definitely something I've learned over the past year.
Right.
Quote yourself.
I fucking hate you. I fucking hate you. What? okay, never mind. I'm sorry.
Let me break it
I'm
down.
sorry.
Yes.
So at least in my journey of like understanding myself and loving myself, I start to come across like really profound thoughts, you know? And it's not like I can read books and find things that are inspirational,
Mm-hmm.
but I think the things that inspire me the most to keep going are the things that I have found extremely profound just out of my own head.
Yeah.
Like
Mhm.
realizing my self-awareness and how much I'm capable of, and just like the occasional like epiphany of a thought.
Yeah.
The only reason I started Twitter was just so that I could actually start documenting what I have like a self-awareness,
Epiphany
like
thoughts.
epiphany, you know?
Yeah.
But when you start like just start quoting yourself, start inspiring yourself to move forward.
Mm-hmm.
As much as looking inward helps you express yourself outwards. You know what I mean? So if I'm inspiring myself, it makes it easier for myself to start inspiring other people as well. You know?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the times when my friends are talking to me, it's not me imparting my advice on them. It's me helping them realize that the answer they've been looking for has been with them the entire time. They've been telling themselves the entire time, and they just haven't listened to themselves.
Exactly.
You know, most of the time, they come with me, like, a problem starts being talked about, and I'm like, okay, what about this, this, and this? It's almost as if the answer was right there the whole time.
Like, you already knew.
Like, you already knew. You just told me.
Yeah.
Did you not hear it right there?
Yeah.
And you're like, oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh. Every time you feel like that, everything you go, oh. Just remember that about yourself.
Yeah.
You realized yourself.
Literally trust yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Who else are you going to trust? Literally.
Only person that got you was you.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But, like, don't fall into that toxic mentality of,
definitely.
individualism, but also, like, really learn to trust yourself because what you said, what you have, what is it? What, the answers inside, what did you say?
Quote yourself.
Quote yourself.
Just quote yourself.
Yeah.
You know? It's like, especially when, like I said, you start talking about your problems out loud.
Yeah.
You once you hear it, you start to realize where that conversation goes wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
like, I'm comfortable talking about my trauma now because every time I bring it up, I can pick apart each point where that goes wrong.
Yeah.
Especially
Mhm.
when you start looking backwards, because hindsight's 20/20. That's always the thing. But that's why it's important. It helps you understand things better now.
Yeah.
When you start to look back and be like, oh, that was this, and this. I needed to quote myself on, and that helps you keep yourself accountable too.
Yeah.
If you already said it, you already told yourself, there's no reason you shouldn't be falling back into that mindset, you know?
Yeah.
So that's my bit of advice,
You're...
I guess.
Oh, thanks, y'all. That's it. Yeah.
Alright, another 2-hour episode.
Sick.
Thank y'all for the space.
Yeah, before we end it off,
Yes.
shout outs for UK.
Yeah.
Anything you want to shout out?
I'd like to shout out Mahal Thrift. Please follow our Instagram at mahalthrift.ko. We sell vintage, feminine clothing. We've worked really hard on it. Megan and I have worked really hard on our small little baby business. So please check her out. And then the books I mentioned were The Body Keeps the Score and All About Love. Check those books out. And then another podcast that I listen to is called The Homecoming Podcast with Dr. Tema, and she's a doctor and a minister, and she incorporates like spirituality and mental health work into what she talks about. So there's episodes titled like forgiveness. What else? Like the aspect of her, or the whole premise of her podcast is coming home to yourself, and like you said, like literally quoting yourself, like listening to your body, listening to yourself, and just trusting yourself, coming back home, because your whole life you've been leaving your home, which is like your intuition and your body because of outside factors, but coming back home is what I feel like I'm working on right now.
Yeah. I love this episode.
Yeah, thank y'all for the space.
Thanks.
I
Thanks
appreciate
for joining
y'all.
us.
Thanks for joining us and speaking your truth. Yeah. I've been Fluid.
I'm Datu.
And I'm Kathleen.
And you've listened to A Brown Conversation. Roll credits.
Yes.